So I'm going to need to go ahead and place a cut right here, right where my hands have just left the frame and it's only the painting. How do I do that? Well, a lot of people would go over here to the razor tool, select it, place a cut, then go back over to the selection tool, take this, delete it by pressing delete on your keyboard, and then take this clip and then move it forward, right? And they would repeat the process. So I need to cut it right before my hands come in again. So they would go to the razor tool, place a cut, go over here to when my hands come out, place a cut, go to the selection tool, delete, and then move this over. That takes so long. I'm going to show you a few other options. So let's go to where we have to place a cut again. So right before the paper shows up. Let's zoom in a little bit and let's cut it right where the playhead is. Let's use the playhead as our ninja sword. As long as the clip is selected, you can go Command K and insert that cut. Now let's go to where the hand is out again, do Command K. So now we have to get rid of this, right? So we could do delete, or we can right click and go to ripple delete. What happened? Well, what happened was we got rid of this middle clip and then everything after it rippled forward. Check it out again. Let me select that, right click, ripple delete, it rippled. Isn't that cool? Okay, let's do that again. So right before the hand comes in, right there. So Command K, the hand comes in, all right. Right here is where we want to ripple delete it again, right? So we'll do Command K. We want to get rid of this little sliver. So instead of choosing ripple delete from a menu, you can go to Control Delete on a PC or Option Delete on a Mac. Ta-da! Awesome, let's do that again. So we'll find right before the hand comes in, Command K, right after the hand goes out, Command K, and then Control Delete. Now, what if I told you that there's an even easier way to do this? So again, let's find where our cut point is, right before the scissors come on, Command K. Now we want everything to happen at once, right? We want the cut to happen at the playhead. Then we want this new chunk that develops to delete itself out of existence. And we want everything after the cut to ripple forward. All we have to do is use one shortcut, and that's the letter Q. That's it. So you can just keep going over here, right before the hand comes in, Command K, right after the hand, Q, and build out this whole beginning number. Now the question is, what if it was the other way around? What if you had a cut that's already there in the future? You wanted to create a new cut right before it, and you wanted to ripple everything from this cut to this cut. What would you do? Well, the shortcut is W. So let's say I want to place a cut here and ripple from here to here, just get rid of this little section. All I would do is press W, bam. So you can see now the way it plays out, all of the objects appear on screen. Okay, I spent another minute going through this and I finished up all the cuts. I also reframed some of these. You can see I went all the way up to 100% in scale. I wouldn't ever really try to go more than that because at that point you're getting some pixelation. Like you can start seeing the individual pixels here. And you can see what I ended up with is large swaths of boring footage. This is still a 6.5 minute video and I really would like to keep it around a minute, maybe. So what I want to do is speed some of these longer clips up. Now, just like before where we actually reversed the first clip, we can just change the speed on this. Right click, go to speed duration and put a new speed or a new duration. So if I want this to be twice as fast, for example, I can do 200%. And now it's twice as fast. And I can get rid of this gap right here by right clicking in the middle and going to ripple delete. So now if I play it through, it's going still very slowly. So I could always right click, go to speed duration, change it to 400% or something like that. Or I can rate stretch it. So the rate stretch tool, it's hidden in the toolbar. It's right here. So if you don't see it, like for example, if the ripple edit tool is on or something, all you have to do is click and hold and change it to the rate stretch tool. But you can also see that the shortcut is R. So if I ever want to enable the rate stretch tool, I can just go to R, and that basically changes the speed of whatever the clip is. So I can go over here to the end of it and drag it forward, and that will stretch the speed. So now it'll play through a lot faster. And you can see here in the big parentheses, 529%. That's how fast it is. If I rate stretch it even farther, 1500%. And you can see my computer is kind of like stalling. Sometimes that happens when you put too many effects on something or when you have like really heavy footage to play with. And there's a way to play it back super, super smooth. The way to do that is to render that area or that clip. Right here you can see above the timeline, you've probably noticed, there's a yellow line. And when there is no footage, there is no line. Now this line, it can be green, it could be yellow, or it could be red. Yellow generally means, hey, watch out, it might not play through for you very smoothly. You might have to render it. So I like to think of rendering as like preheating the oven, right? If you put something into the oven right when it's cold, it's going to take a really long time to cook because it has to be preheated first. So let's preheat the oven here. Let's render this little section. Now we could just select this, go over here to sequence and render the selection, but I also want to teach you about in and out points. So let's actually render into out. We haven't set in and out points yet though, so let's set those. So here on the timeline, we'll move our playhead to the beginning of the clip. And how can we make sure that it's the beginning of that clip? Well, we can use our up and down arrows on the keyboard, and that'll just snap us to the next cut point. So we'll go to the beginning, we'll press I on our keyboard, I. That's in. And you can see this little gray bar appears, and it shows us that this is our in point. Now we'll press down on our keyboard. That goes to the end of the clip where the cut is, and we'll press O on our keyboard. That's the out point. This is the section that we want to render. So we'll go to sequence, render into out. This is the rendering window, and it tells you how much time is left in the render and how many frames we are rendering. Once it's done, you can see this section turns green, and you can play it through, and it should play through without stuttering, without any problems. And if we want to clear those in and out points, we just have to click in this area, right click, clear in and out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rate stretch a lot of these sections because me cutting around this artwork, it's a snooze fest, right? So I'm going to rate stretch that. Just rate stretch a lot of them with no abandon, without abandon. Yeah, just rate stretch, rate stretch. Yeah. So now we have all of these little chunks here with a lot of gaps in between. So I can select in the middle of the gaps, right click and go to ripple delete, ripple delete, ripple delete. But imagine doing that for like an hour-long video. That can get pretty annoying. So I'm going to undo, Command Z, Command Z. So there is actually a way to close all the gaps, but the shortcut isn't a default. So you actually have to create the shortcut yourself, and I'll show you how to do that. You can go to Edit, Keyboard Shortcuts. This is a super great menu for if you ever forget anything at all, you can always look it up or create your own. If you want to create a shortcut, just type in whatever you want to create the shortcut for. So for me, it's close gap right there. It pulls up and you can see there is no shortcut for it. So I just click over here to where it says shortcut and I'll put my keystrokes in. So for me, it's going to be Control Alt G. That's going to be my close gap shortcut. I'm going to press OK. So then when I go to my timeline, I do Control Alt G and it closes all the gaps. Now, if I wanted to render this entire thing, yes, I could go to the beginning over here by either dragging my playhead or clicking this go to end button. And then I could go to out, I could press O. So I set my in and out points and then go to sequence render in and out. Or even if I don't have in and out points, sequence render in and out will still render the entire sequence. So by default, sequence render in and out just renders everything, even if you don't put in and out points there. Before we go any further, I'm going to make a version. I like to make a version every time I render. So right click, reveal sequence in project. There's that sequence. I'm going to right click, duplicate, and rename my new sequence, O3 first cut, double click. So now I'm on the first cut sequence and I'm leaving all the other ones alone. In a few of these clips, it's actually hard to tell what's going on because it's a top view, right? So you can't really tell that I'm sliding this into a frame. I have a better angle. So instead of using this one, let's find something else to use. So I'm going to go back into my footage folder, double click, go to icon view so that I can see all of the thumbnails over here. And I'm going to go to my B camera, double click, open that up. And I'm going to actually find the section of the front view camera where I am doing this exact motion. Oh, there it is. Okay, so this is actually better viewed from the side. So let me put this clip in. But the problem is, if I go ahead and do the thing that I did before, where I just select this thumbnail and I go ahead and I drag it in, oh my gosh, look what happens. Not only is it a super long clip because I didn't designate which portion of the clip I'm going to be bringing in, but it just covered everything. So that's not good. I'm going to undo that. So instead of doing that, let's first figure out where to put this in my timeline. I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to slip it in right there. So I'm going to put my time indicator there. And remember, I can always click on the up and down arrows to kind of snap my playhead to that spot. And now I need to designate which portion of this clip I am putting right there. So you guessed it, in and out points. I'm going to press I, and that's going to create that in point, right? Then I'm going to take the current time indicator to the end right there where the artwork is inside of the frame. I'm going to press O. Voila. Now I can go ahead and drag it, and it doesn't drag the entire thing. I can put it on the second track, and I think this is what people do all the time, right? They just drag it and they put it on the second track, meaning you have multiple video tracks. So the one that's on top is the one that's going to show, right? And we can always right click, set to frame size, or we can do the shortcut, Shift Command F. But then what people usually do is then they'll be like, okay, but I got to put it there. So I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to grab all this. I'm going to move that aside, and then I'm going to put it in, and then I'm going to bring this up. Okay. Well, no, we're not doing that. There's an easier way to do this. Trust me. So undo, undo, undo. First of all, if you were going to do that, the faster and easier way to select everything after your mouse is to change your mouse to a track select forward tool, which is A. You can see it's over here, A, or you can just press A, which means that it automatically selects everything that is after where your mouse is. Right? So if I were to do it that way, I would select A, then I'd go back V on my keyboard for the selection tool, and I'd press Shift to also select this one, move it aside, move this down, move this down. But there's an even easier way to do this. So undo, 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 undo. Again, I'm going to place my cursor by going up and down on the keyboard right where I want to sort of insert that clip. And I'm going to go into the insert button that's right here. So insert. Ta-da! Not only did it insert that clip, but it also rippled all of the other clips back. Watch that again. Insert. Now there's another one right here. It's called overwrite. So if I wanted to do overwrite, this is what would happen if I do that. It overrides on top. It doesn't ripple everything, right? So insert inserts it, and override goes on top of everything. Now, if I wanted to put this little section of the clip onto this second layer without having to also drag the audio with it, what I could do is drag video only. That's where I just go into this icon right here. I hold it and I drag it over. Another way to do it simply is to lock this entire track. So watch what happens when I lock the track. So I'll lock the track and I'll go insert. So what happened? The audio came through, but the video did not. Well, that's because source patching is enabled on the first video layer, not any other ones. So this highlight, this blue highlight behind the V1 track, if I move it up to the V2 track and then I do the insert, bam, it goes on the second layer. But what happens when you unlock it and do insert? Everything still ripples. So if you unlock it, you would have to do overwrite for that to be up there. Let's just say it is on the second track over here, and I want to put it in here, in between here. Now, what do I do? Well, I can go to my A tool, select everything, V, then shift select that, move it over, then drop it down. I can also just go Alt, hold down Alt, and then move down on the arrow key for that to drop down. Another way that I could ripple this and insert it into that first video layer is I can just hold it, and while dragging, hold down Command, and bam, it's in there. So want to make sure that that's the right size, right click, set to frame size, or I can just use the shortcut Shift Command F. And then I want to delete this one because I no longer need it. I have the front view, which is better. So use that shortcut from earlier, Command Delete. There we go. And maybe I also want to do this moment from the front, but then starting here, I want to do it from the side. So I'll go Q, and that'll insert a cut, and then cut everything to the previous cut, right? So I'll do Q here, and I'll go ahead and find that moment where both of them are being displayed, I and O. Again, I can press the insert or overwrite, or I can use the shortcuts, which are the comma or the period. So I'll do the comma to insert. There we go. Shift Command F to frame it properly, and bam. It's almost like one follows the other. Now remember our 60 frame per second clips from earlier? Remember, if we go into list view, we see them here. We labeled them this pink color. Well, if we open any of them up, what happens? What does it look like? Well, it just looks like I'm mounting them to the wall in real time. And if I wanted to put a clip of that at the end here, I could do the same thing where I can do I and then O over here, and then do comma, and it jumps in. Right click, set to frame size, perfect. But because they were recorded at 60 frames per second, I can also rate stretch them and they'll turn into slow motion. So I can go R on my keyboard for rate stretch and stretch it out. And what happens is it plays back in nice slow motion, but only to a point, right? If I stretch it far out, it'll jitter, right? It'll be really, really jittery. I'll do even more intense so you can see it's like, right? So 60 frames per second can only stretch so far until you get that really jittery looking motion. So how do you make sure that you have the perfect percentage, right? How do you know if you're recording things at different frame rates that you get the right frame rate, that you get the right ratio? Well, for me, I wouldn't use rate stretch on these clips. Instead, I would conform these clips to the correct frame rate before I start placing them in my timeline. So let's delete this and let's go to all the clips that are 59.94, right? I'll select all of them, select the first one, shift, select the last one, that selects all of them. Then I'll go ahead and right click, go to modify, interpret footage, and here I can put in my new frame rate. So I can assume a new frame rate. And what am I going to assume? Well, I'm going to assume the frame rate of all the other clips, 23.976. So I'll assume this frame rate, 23.976. I'll press OK. And now when I click on any of these clips, they play back in slow motion already. So I'm going to have to set a new in out point, starting here, in and out. And then I can go ahead and drop it in there. I also want to put one at the beginning, right? Because we want to do like, what are we making at the beginning? So I'll go jump my playhead to the beginning over here by using this button, or I could have like physically moved it over there as well. And I'll choose a nice looking shot, maybe right when the lights turn off, and bam. So I'll go in with I, out with O, right there, and I'll pop it in at the very beginning. And then maybe another close-up. I and O. We'll pop it in right there. Let's move on to the next step. Of course, I'm going to duplicate this sequence and make a new one. So right-click, reveal sequence in project, right-click, duplicate, 04. I'm going to call it with music and double click. Let's add music. Okay, so obviously you can use whatever music you want, and I usually put the music that the client requests into this music folder. But if you don't have music to use, there's music inside of Premiere Pro that you can license. So if you go over here to window, we're finally going to open up another window. Thus far, we've only been working with these four, and we're going to go ahead and open up Essential Sound. So Essential Sound panel can not only edit the audio that you are already working with, but it can help you find new audio as well. So we're going to go over here to browse and browse some audio from Adobe Stock. So let's see, moods. We'd like this to be happy and inspiring. For genres, let's go pop and maybe dance. That could be fun. And for filters, let's do a pretty up-tempo song. We want it to be at least 1 minute long. And we can choose which partners we are pulling the music from. Now, it's very important to note that once you choose a song, you do have to license it by clicking on the shopping cart icon, because otherwise you're going to get dinged by, the copyright on whatever website you are trying to upload this to. But you can also download a low resolution track just to kind of play around and see if it works in your project. So I'm going to put my playhead at the beginning of my video, and I'm going to make sure that timeline sync is enabled over here. And I'm going to go through and see what kind of music I have and kind of play the clips along with my video. Let me start over here with Reflective Upbeat. I like it. So I'm just going to drag it into my project, into over here. This is the first track down here. I'm going to mute this for now so that we can listen to some other ones. Let's try Lo-Fi Calm. Nope, too slow. The ambient. I also like this one, so I'll put it in. I also like this one. Let's put that one in. So you can see that all three of these tracks are different durations, but I can either mute two of them to listen to one of them. So if I mute the top two, I'll hear the bottom. Oh, that is very loud. How do I know? It's clipping at the top. See how the decibel scale is going really high up? Listen to this. Right? So if I want to turn it down, make it a little bit less loud, there's this volume line in the middle, and I'll just drag it down, maybe -6 decibels. Let's play that. Yeah, that's about the right level. So if I wanted to listen to this one, I could mute this one and unmute that one. I could do that, but also I could just solo that one. That's what the S is for, and play that back. Again, this is way too loud, so I'm gonna lower the intensity. I can either change the decibel intensity here. There's another way I could do it where I could right click and go to audio gain, and I could go -6 over here, and you can see in this way the actual waveform got lower in the track. I could also, if I wanted to turn it down lower, I could go over here to the edit tab in Essential Sound, mark it as music, and then turn the clip volume down over here as well. Okay, let me solo that one. Again, too loud. So let me do this version here. All three different versions of how to change the volume. Oh, I did the opposite, I think. Sure did. I added 6. So let's subtract 12 in order to balance it out. I think I like the last one the best. So I'll delete these two and I'll move this up. And if I want to find where it is, I just have to right click and go to Reveal in Project. And here it says Adobe Stock Audio Media. I can go ahead and put that bin inside of the music bin so that everything's more organized for me. Once I'm ready to buy it, I just click on the shopping cart icon and it says license Adobe Stock Music Track. And I have 45 licenses, so I can go ahead and confirm. And now it's licensed to me. As I'm playing through, I want to make more edits to this. But if I'm doing that shortcut Command K, what happens is that this gets sliced through as well, right? Command K, this keeps getting sliced through. So I want to preserve the music track and make sure that it doesn't get sliced through. So I'm going to undo that and I'm going to lock the track. Once I lock it, it can't be touched. Right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to time all of this to the track itself. So let's see the very beginning. Let's play that through. Da 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 da. That was good. So let me rate stretch. Okay, next one. So maybe I want to start the tools here. So I'll go A for select all afterwards. And I'll extend this a little bit. And then right here where that beat drops, that's where I want the tools to start appearing, right? So one thing that's going to be very helpful to me is to place markers on the timeline so that I don't have to every single time be like, okay, where is that? Okay, shorten it. Let's play it through. Okay, where's that next one? Okay, it's here. So we got to move that here and make it shorter this way. I could just place markers and then I don't have to listen to the song anymore. So what I'm going to do is, as I'm listening through to this track, I'm going to place my finger on the M key and keep pressing it every time there's a beat. M, 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 M. So now all I have to do is find where those markers are. Right there, right there, right there. And as long as my snapping is enabled, I should be able to just snap each of these to the markers. Now all of these tools appear on the beat. Watch this. And also, see what happens when I'm scrolling along? This is called scrubbing. And you start hearing that sound, that tinny sound. You can go ahead and turn that off. Over here in Preferences, Audio, you can deselect Play Audio while scrubbing. Ah, sweet silence. But when you press play or you press the space bar, okay, so you can see here, I went ahead and I cut these all up. I made it pretty good, like around 1 minute and 2 seconds. And the track is too long for me. So instead of doing something like just shortening it up and having it end abruptly like this, if that were the case, I'd maybe want to kind of make sure that the audio like dips or peters out at the end. So maybe what I could do is go to my effects window over here and type in fade, and over here under audio transitions crossfade, maybe I'll grab the exponential fade, drop it in so that it sounds like this. Still sounds pretty abrupt though, because it's not the song's natural ending. So maybe instead of doing that, what I would do is, okay, I got it. I'll place a cut here and then I'll move the back part over. But then I kind of just place the cut randomly, and this transition's probably not going to sound very nice. Let's see. No, that sounds awful. So how do I shorten it, have this natural fade, but also not have a abrupt transition? Well, I'm going to undo that. You can just remix it. It's the remix tool. It's over here, hiding behind the rate stretch tool. And when you use it and you change the length of the track, it actually uses artificial intelligence called Adobe Sensei to figure out where the most logical cuts should be. And those are indicated with these squiggly lines right here. So let's play through the squiggly lines and hear how it sounds. Very good, very natural. How about this one? Very good. Maybe I want it to be just a tad bit longer than that because I want to put a last clip at the very end. This isn't my last clip. The last clip I want is of the lights turning off, right? So let me try to make it just a tad bit longer. Let's see what it does. Aha, perfect. So it gave me that latitude, and I'm going to just find a good ending clip. Maybe this one right here. So I'll grab I and O points. Great, and I'll put it in. How does that sound? Let's see. Oh, I definitely want it to go dark on that. So I will find the point in the clip where the lights turn off, and I'll place a marker on the clip itself instead of placing a marker on the timeline by selecting the clip and going M. So that places the marker on the clip itself, and then I'll know, I think that is around here. So I'll even that out and then drag it to the end. Let's see. So now that we have the music laid out and our edit is done, let's actually start adding some text. So we'll go over here to the type tool and start typing directly on the screen. So with the type tool selected, we are going to add the word floating frames. Okay, not too bad, but the default font, it's not really doing it for me. So let's open up another window. We'll go over here to Window and we'll open up Essential Graphics. And it'll open up in another tab here. So we still have Essential Sound, but now we also have Essential Graphics. And this is what's going to control all the graphics that we are seeing. So first, let's choose another font. Let's try Poppins. Oh, I quite like that. Maybe all caps. Adjust the kerning and leading a little bit. Adjust the position and alignment. Make the font smaller. So you can see here in Align and Transform, as I hover over any of these numbers, they change. Also, see what's happening here in the timeline itself. You can see here on track number 2, the actual text has become a layer. Now, if I want to duplicate this, I just hold down Option and drag, and then it duplicates it for me. So now I have something that I can go ahead and reposition over here. And I'm going to type in parchment paper. Now that font is quite big, so I'm going to make it smaller, maybe 60. So let's make this one 60 as well, just to keep the same size. Okay, nice. Floating frames, parchment paper. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, drag that again over here. Selection tool over here. Let's make it left justified. This is just like if you've used Photoshop or Illustrator, you'll recognize a lot of this menu. Artwork. By the way, this is an artwork that I made in the style of Roy Lichtenstein. I could also just make this longer, right? And then just use the razor tool to cut it. That's the other way to do it. Great. And then let's do the word ingredients. So I will extend this, cut it right here, and not ingredients, let's do tools. And let's center justify it and then center it, align it in the center, make it really big. Let's center align it again. Give it, yeah, there we go. Nice. This doesn't have to be completely white, right? I can make it slightly see-through. Remember how on the audio, this was our volume line? Well, on video, this is our opacity line. So I can drag this down and make it a little bit more transparent. Nice. And if you wanted to add some more of those fun blend modes, they're over here in Effect Controls, which is a window that, by the way, exists for whatever you're on. So here under Effect Controls, you can go ahead and under opacity, you can do something like, I don't know, overlay, for example. Turn that back on. So maybe soft light. Maybe that's better. Something like that. Nice. And let's actually, I alt dragged that title over. Let's give this a name. So light up artwork or light up art. And let's have it appear right as the lights go down. There. And let's give it a color, maybe a yellow. Nice. I'll start it there, and then it'll fully get the color it needs to be there. So I'll place a marker just so that I know. And then what I'll do is I'll place a keyframe on this, meaning it'll start at 0 and then it'll end up at 100 opacity. So all I have to do is hold down Alt, place a keyframe, hold down Alt, place a keyframe, and drag the first one down. And if you want to see just that without having this influence you, I can always turn off the visibility of the bottom layer just so that you can see only what the graphic is doing. That's actually what's so fun about having multiple layers, right? Because if I want to export a version of this later that has no graphics at all I have to do is toggle this off, and now you can't see any of the graphics. I can always enable the visibility, and now you can see all of the graphics. Speaking of enabling or disabling, what if I wanted to turn off some of these graphics, but not all of them, right? What if I wanted to I don't know, turn off these middle 3, for example, right? Because if I disable the visibility of the whole layer, I disable everything on that layer. So I could take these 3 and move them up and then take off the visibility of that layer. Or something else I could do is I could take these 3, right click, and deselect enable. So see how now they're grayed out? This is like a bright red and this is like a dull red. So you see this one, but you don't see these 3. I'm gonna re-enable them. I could right click, go to enable, or I could just do Shift E and that'll enable, disable different layers. Okay, now that I've added all this text in all these directions, maybe I rethink the color or the font that I'm trying to work with. I can always change it. So if I select all of these, I can go up here and I can just change the font to whatever I want. Maybe I'm feeling something like this. Actually, I quite like that rounded vibe.